Millie Odhiambo, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, she's the Suba North Member of Parliament, joining us from our Central Business District studios. Mheshimiwa, thank you for making time for Crossfire. Also with us is David Murathe. He's the Jubilee Vice Chairman. We also have Rigathi Gachagua. He is Madeira Member of Parliament. All of you, delighted to have your company with us this evening. A lot to discuss and cover. The political landscape clearly is just getting hotter and hotter by the day. Those drum beats getting louder, sometimes very concerning and worrying for the country. I'll begin with the incident that happened in Kisii last weekend, and you had Raila, Ruto attending that funeral, and critics have argued that they did not condemn the incident when we saw Honorable Arati and Osoro go at each other. I'll begin with you, Honorable Millie. What did you make of that? These two leaders are there, senior leaders. These other ones are having a fist fight. And after all that, we don't see condemnation, and things yet have degenerated to a level we are going to blows.
Thank you for inviting me to this evening. Let me just say that I don't know what exactly we were expecting to condemn or what we are expecting Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga to condemn, especially in relation to Honorable Simba Arati. I think social media has made it possible to actually get news almost immediately. And we saw that my very good friend Honorable Osoro stood unprompted where he was seated, walked to the dais after he had already gotten his chance to speak, and went and attacked Honorable Simba Arati. In law, you are allowed to defend yourself when you are under attack. I had somebody, a lawyer, talking that that was a case of a fray. A fray is where, two people kind of spontaneously start, fighting each other. That was not a case. All Honorable Simba Arati did was to sort of defend himself. But I want to say that on this one, I want to thank both leaders, both my party leader and the deputy president, that they downplayed the situation by calling for people to exercise tolerance. It is too early for us as a country to become so intolerant. We shouldn't be, intolerant at any time, but really when the timing is completely out of place. One year, 8 months before elections, and we are the ones setting the pace. I would want to encourage my colleagues, that is not the way to go. Let us disagree, but let us disagree, respectfully.
But there are those who would argue, and I'll come to you, Honorable Rigathi, on this one. Honorable Millie talks about downplaying on what transpired and that it was a good move. But some would argue it should not be downplayed, because if it is, then it appears normal, it appears okay, and then that kind of messaging trickles down to supporters. So there are those who would argue at the point, and I don't know what he was thinking at the time, but when Honorable Arati started talking about the deputy president needing to apologize to the people from Kisii off of what transpired in 2007 and the violence at the time, in your view, is that a can we should be reopening? Honorable Rigathi.
Thank you very much, Sophia. I was in Kisii. I was in that funeral, and I sat through, and what happened is indeed very sad. We should never get there. People should not get physical. It's unnecessary. But the circumstances that led to that action should be seen in perspective. The speeches had gone very well. All members of parliament had been given a chance to speak, and the speeches were very balanced, and the crowd was torn in between 60-40. Some were cheering this side, others were cheering the other side. And when the Honorable Simba Arati got a chance to speak, he rubbed the crowd the wrong way. First and foremost, he made very ridiculous remarks that were an extension of the talk that was in Sabatia in Mululu. He told the people there during daylight that the Kalenjin should never be given a chance to rule again, and it didn't go well with the people. People are shouting and asking to sit down and to stop speaking. Then he went on, and it's only now when he started to reignite the 2007 you know, that bad chapter in our history about the clashes that took place. And a lot of people, you know, Sophia, many people have healed, people have moved on, and many people do not want to be reminded about what took place in the year 2007. And when he started saying that the issues of 2007 should be revisited, and you know, the crowd started surging forward, and the situation was getting very ugly, is when the Honorable Osoro moved forward, and then there was a scuffle, and there was a stand-up for almost 10 minutes. You know, security had to do a lot of work to bring things back to normal. You know, I would like myself to condemn that kind of situation. It was unnecessary for leaders to engage into a fisticuff. It was also very careless and irresponsible for the Honorable Arati, you know, to bring such, you know, sensitive issues in a crowd like that one. It's unnecessary, because this country from 2007, we have moved on. You saw the other day, my president, Uhuru Kenyatta, come out very strongly to admonish the DCI, you know, when he had become very reckless and irresponsible, you know, by calling people from Eldoret and asking them to record statements that he wants to revive the issues of 2007. And the president was very clear, and he told the DCI that he should think before he speaks, and he should think before he acts. He was very tough on him, and that matter came to a halt. And what the president did is the right thing. Nobody, no leader in this country should take us back to 2007. That is a chapter that we have closed, we have moved on, and we don't want anybody to ever take us back to the events of 2007.
And I hope in equal measure you condemn Honorable Osoro for walking up to the podium.
Yes, I have said it's unfortunate. Even Osoro should not have done that. Even at the highest provocation, leaders must all the time, you know, contain themselves, because, you know, as leaders, we must set the best example to the people that we lead.
All right.
So that I from both leaders, that was uncalled for, it was unnecessary, and that is something we shouldn't see a repeat of.
And Honorable Murathe, in your view, because there are those who argue this is a conversation to the extent of not two tribes should not keep circulating or oscillating the presidency between the two, the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins. He started that in a sense, or rather gave it prominence when he said there should be occasion for other communities as well. And when you hear what Honorable Arati was talking about, is atutaki mkali mwingine. So do you fear that he's begun a conversation that then is driving the country to a very dangerous position?
No, Sophia. The unfortunate thing is people trying to bury their heads in the sand. You can never, history, and we have history, including our own Mau Mau history. And people say you can forgive, but you can never forget. You can never erase that sad situation. And the more you try to run away from that, the more you try to pretend like it never happened, the more people get emboldened and they want to repeat it again and again and again. You have to address these things. They did it in Rwanda. They did the Gachacha courts. People forgave each other. People confessed to the crimes they committed against the people. And the issue of ping pong between Kalenjin, Kikuyu akimaliza, Kalenjin nachukua, Kalenjin akimaliza, Kikuyu nachukua, most likely, and I keep saying this, I've said it before, most likely the deputy president would like to pick a running mate from the Mount Kenya region because of the numbers. And that is a high probability that post the deputy president Kalenjin, you are now looking at another Mount Kenya, Kikuyu taking over. This country has 42 communities. We have some developed countries which have rules of rotational, like Switzerland, some of those in Europe. You have the term limits in the US, where you have even a black person getting an opportunity to become president. So it cannot be monopolized by two communities. This is not ping pong. This is not table tennis. So something has to give. Some way has to be found for people to feel accommodated, for people to feel inclusion, and you cannot have people feeling excluded.
To selling ideology, shouldn't it be left to people coming out to Kenyans and saying, this is what I'm offering, this is what I'm going to do for you, as opposed to which tribe are you from? Because that could quickly degenerate, as we are seeing it begin to do.
We are about meritocracy. and we have always supported people based on merit. But this is politics, and a way has to be found, a formula has to be found, and I support what the president said in Mululu. You see, in politics, it is not like you're applying for jobs, and therefore it's the qualifications that matter. There is a lot of balancing that needed to be taken into account and into consideration for this feeling. You don't want people to feel excluded from the leadership of their own country. And that is why, if you ask me, and if you ask a lot of Kenyans, I don't think Arati was wrong to say yes. Some other people, maybe we should give that opportunity. However, the president has never said people should not express their democratic right. He has never said a Kikuyu should not run for that matter. He has never said a Kalenjin should never run for that matter. He is just pitching in terms of, hey, these guys have got the hustler narrative, the rich versus the poor, blah, blah, blah. So we can also say, fine, why don't we also give other people an opportunity, people who have felt left out since independence? We have shared this thing for over 60 years.
Why didn't the president
between two
have
communities.
That kind of thinking in 2013? Why then? Because it had also come from Kikuyu to Kalenjin. He was another Kikuyu, then another. So this epiphany, when did it hit the president that this is the time to have that conversation? But allow me to take it to Millie, Honorable Odhiambo, on the question of then the Vice Chair Jubilee says we shouldn't bury our heads in the sand, that what Honorable Arati was talking about, seeking an apology from the DP, is a conversation we need to have. Should we be having that conversation now, remembering again the president castigating the DCI when he had brought in witnesses to reopen those cases?
Well, let me just say, before I respond to what you are saying, that I understand Honorable Rigathi and his perspective from where he was sitting. It's not usually very clear when you are seated, but it's much more clearer when you're actually watching, you know, as an onlooker that is watching on the screen or on TV. And perhaps what he didn't see is that Honorable Soro stood up on his own, alone. So there was nothing, especially even going by his body size, that he was going to do to stop a purported surging crowd that we did not see. And at one point, Honorable Simbarati actually told people, do you want me to continue? And there were crowds that were shouting, continue. Of course, there were also others who didn't want him to continue because of the nature of politics. There will always be people in opposition and people in support. But having said that, I just want to say that what the president said, and it's a conversation that many of us in this country feel uncomfortable about, but we should not feel uncomfortable about. He didn't speak about exclusion. He's not talking about excluding the Kikuyu, neither is he talking about excluding the Kalenjin. The president talked about including other tribes. And the best way to include other tribes is to acknowledge that those tribes have not had a chance at the presidency. And for me, the first person that I heard this message from was none other than Bishop Margaret Wanjiru when we were in Reloaded in ODM. And his message was 50 years is enough. And for her, it was 50 years is enough for others to be out of leadership. Let us include others. I also heard it from Honorable Mudama in the past. So it doesn't matter which angle. People have felt the need to speak about these issues, except that when you move and shift, you are divided, then you start becoming uncomfortable. What we need to speak about in this country is how we need to include others and give others a chance. And if we don't talk about that, and I'm very, very happy that I'm on record even before I joined politics, speaking to these issues about inclusion. That's actually my forte, about inclusion, especially of minorities. I would love to see a Turkana as a president. I'd like to see somebody from Mombasa as a president, Kwale, you know, different parts of the country, really, Muluya, Somali. Let's talk about inclusion, not about exclusion.
Then how do we get that as opposed to it then, because it could have the counter effect where then there's discrimination against those two that have been in leadership and that kind of vitriol around the same. So how do we achieve that? Yes, it's good to be inclusive and all of that, but at the end of the day, it's Wanjiko. Everyone goes to the ballot and votes. There's no lump sum that comes in and says, as a bloc, we are choosing our own. So how do we cure this in a democratic fashion?
Well, I think it is the same thing that you can talk about the issue of dynasty and, and I would want to say that it is how we actually temper what we are talking about. We are either stopping discussions around issues of class and issues of ethnicity, or we put both on the table and discuss them, but in a tempered way, so that we are not talking about discriminating against communities. We are not talking about excluding people based on their history or that their parents were teachers or their parents were lawyers. Neither are we excluding people because of their ethnicity, that they are either Kikuyus or Kalenjins, but we talk about inclusion. The same way we are talking, I can see the Rigathi side talking about, let us include the people of Mukokoteni, though in reality I don't see them including them. Their presidential candidates or MPs or MCS, they are not putting that sort of category. I would want to encourage them to put that kind of category in their leadership slots. But at the same time, it's also, so if you are having that sort of conversation, it's an uncomfortable conversation, and we must find a way to discuss those two without breaking the country apart. But I agree with you that those are two issues that, if not handled well, have a way of spinning out of control and can take this country into very dangerous levels. But if we actually approach it very soberly, if we approach them very soberly, then there are conversations that should be had. The only challenge is that we're having these conversations sort of a little too close to elections, both the dynasty issue and the ethnic inclusion issue.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we've already gotten a sneak peek of how badly this can all go down with what happened in Kisii. Interesting, something that Honorable Millie has said to you, Rigathi, about that this expanding the presidency beyond two tribes is to tamper that class wars has been described, hustler and dynasty. Do you find that this is retaliatory to then come head on with your narrative in as far as inroads? Because then the question has been, what then is on the other side that's being sold? Do you see this as something to measure up?
I think to start with, our constitution is very clear on how you elect a president. It's my majority vote, 50+1. And there are no two ways about it. If anybody has any other way of wanting a president to be elected, you have to do a constitutional amendment where now you can include this rotational thing. That is not possible. This is a country of meritocracy, and presidents will be elected on the basis of what they can offer to the people. Some friends of mine from Masai land in Narok, where I used to do some wheat farming, called me and said, we don't like this talk. If we get another Kibaki from central Kenya, we are prepared to elect them for 10 consecutive times, because he changed our lives. He made the economy thrive. We had money in the pocket. There was a lot of business. That was a good president. We really do not care where he comes from. If you people from Nyeri have another president, the caliber of Kibaki, you bring, we'll elect another time, and another time, and another time. And this issue of exclusion, Sophia, was dealt with by devolution. Why we have 47 governments and why we are moving money to the counties is to make sure that everybody has a piece of the national cake. Every county is given money, depending on population, and there are services down there. A lot of money has been removed from Nairobi to the counties so that everybody feels included. About the hustlers versus dynasties, there's nothing like the rich versus the poor. Sophia, hustlers are not poor people. And I want to repeat this again. There is a girl, a village girl from my village called Herega. She's called Lucy Moringo Weru. She was me in school at Kabiroine Primary School in 1977. We used to walk with her barefoot. Her father was a P3 teacher. She did not even have shoes. She went to high school in Mwai Girls. She did very well. She went to the University of Nairobi. She got a degree. She got married to a guy called Gishohi. Then they relocated to Australia. She went there, settled there, struggled, and somehow she has been elected as a senator in Australia. That is a history of a hustler. A village girl all the way to be elected as senator by whites in Australia. She's not a poor person. That's what the whole hustler thing is all about. Okay. That it is possible, irrespective of your background, irrespective of who your parents were, irrespective of your upbringing, working hard and praying to God, one day you can be somebody.
Right.
The people who are talking about the rich versus the poor are the ones who are trying to corrupt the narrative. And what we are asking the people who are opposed to this hustler narrative is to come up with their own narrative. And I don't think bringing ethnicity is a way of countering the hustler narrative. You know, I don't think that is the panacea. They must come up with another narrative, because the hustler narrative is about empowerment. It's about a bottoms-up approach to the economy of this country instead of trickle-down approach.
But and
this is an economic matter. The only way to deal with it, instead of condemning the hustler narrative, is to come up with another narrative to counter that one that will be persuasive to the people of Kenya. And you find why this narrative is popular and is resonating with a lot of Kenyans is because people feel that way, that you would want to be given a chance. And what the Deputy President has done, he is very encouraging. He is a role model. Why he has become the symbol of the hustler nation, given his background. This is a guy who was selling chicken by the wayside.
Right.
He has worked hard and has risen to become the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And all factors being constant, is headed to becoming the President of Kenya. It encourages a lot of people. And that is why a lot of people are associating themselves with this hustler narrative.
And we'll return to that, because I would want us to interrogate that further, that at the end of the day, this is, as you keep mentioning, the Deputy President. And we've seen him give out handouts. And at the end, instead of coming up with mechanisms, policies, and many of the promises that the Jubilee administration made at the beginning, we're not seeing follow-up on that. So that he's managed to almost distance himself from this administration completely and create this new person that's distancing himself from responsibility and accountability as second in command in this country for now 8 years. We'll come back to that. Honorable Murathe, the last you were talking about how it's important that this presidency goes beyond the two tribes. And the question I was getting at is, when did this then occur to you? At what point? Because you and President Uhuru and others of like mind say that, but couldn't this have then been the thing in 2013 to say Raila Tosha?
It's true. In 2013, they were saying not another Kikuyu. But the circumstances then were different, because you had the ICC issues hanging over everybody's heads. And therefore, we needed to demonstrate there was a narrative being ran by our detractors. But having said that, we agree to a large extent about meritocracy and the numbers game. But our politics is predominantly tribal. And we cannot run away from that. And so if you say that the majority tribe, or a combination of the majority tribes will always rule this country, is a recipe for chaos. My friend here, Gachagua, does not want to address the dynasty class issues. What they're up to is radicalizing people. They're radicalizing our young people. They're not talking about hustling. My father was a hustler. He was a sign writer who moved to Kenya Bus to write Kenya Bus services, to be a conductor, an inspector, a salesman, and then he became a salesman driver for Sakon and Speed. That was during Africanization, he became the largest wines and spirits company. Now, when you talk about the Deputy President being a hustler, if you see some of those photos where the Deputy President was sitting next to Biwott and Moi those days, this is someone who has been at the center of power. He is one of the very few who would enter into a cabinet meeting when he was an assistant minister. Of course, how he has
chicken seller, right?
made his money is a topic for another day. There are all those things being mentioned all over the place. And
But he started
I
as
don't
a
want to
chicken
go there.
seller.
Sophia, you are the people who are inciting this mess in this country. It's
How
like you're
inciting?
looking for
looking
blood. You're looking to spill blood. But I'm telling you,
We are
this
not.
hustler narrative, Sophia, is only being perpetrated in Mount Kenya region. They do not do it in Nandi. They are not doing it in the coast. They are not doing it in Ukambani. They are not doing it even in Umasaini, where
Vice
my
Chair,
friend here
you have
is talking
said
about.
your
They are
father
doing
was
it
a
in
hustler.
Mount Kenya.
And you have said your father was a hustler, right?
He hustled his way up.
Do you identify with yourself as well, having hustled your way up?
Of course I did.
So then help the person watching and hearing you say that you're a hustler who's then come to where you are, your father was, and many others. Raila Odinga has said perhaps original hustler. So explain to them then the problem as you see it. Break it down, sir.
You're mixing two things here, Sophia.
Right.
This dynasty issue is a way of radicalizing young people in Mount Kenya. And I don't want people to miss that point. The last time we came here, my friend here, Gachagua, talked about how I became bankrupt. Sophia, I was the biggest African computer company in this country, doing more than 100 million. When this guy was a DO, I was a management trainee for Unilever. When they were busy doing the things which they were doing, I was a self-made man selling computers. I went to primary school in the village, barefoot like he's telling you. I went up to the University of Nairobi from Gakurari Primary School. And from there, we had all our issues with Nyayo, the imprisonments and all that. And we came all the way up to Parliament, just like my friend here, Rigathi, did. However, when you want to interpret this thing as haves versus have-nots and the time for the have-nots to take power, I like what Millie is saying. Probably the deputy president should take a hustler as a running mate. He should take a guy from River Road as a running mate, if they actually mean they want to empower these people. And you put it very well. This is a man who has been in this government for the last 8 years. What have they done to empower these young people, these so-called hustlers, so that they can seize the opportunities made available, the enabling environment, which my friend here, Gachagua, is talking about, the Kibaki era? What has he done? He is part of this government. Why would he want to try and disassociate himself from the programs of this government? He's been part and parcel of this government. What has he done to empower them?
All right. Honorable Millie, do you think at this point we need another handshake? Do you think the president and his deputy need the handshake? Because clearly another battleground, here we are heading to, there's the BBI campaigns already ongoing, then an election in 18 months. Do we need a handshake, another one?
Well, before I respond to the issue about whether we need a handshake, let me first of all disabuse the notion that the deputy president is a hustler or ever sold chicken. And if indeed he sold chicken, he sold it as a hobby. I happen to have been in the same class and year with him at the University of Nairobi. He is 1 month younger than me. And I tell you, he was with me in the Christian Union. And so this notion that this is a guy who struggled and was so poor and stuff really is a lot of baloney. I can tell you that the deputy president, immediately we left the university, some of us who used to walk from where we were, eat maize, roasted maize worth 10 shillings between me and our office mate, while he would be cruising, passing by in vehicles written Youth for KANU 92. So he has never hustled and cannot purport to identify with the people that he calls hustlers. The other issue that I would want to say is that the question that you have actually asked about what is wrong when you say, about hustle. Everybody has hustled, including President Uhuru. I was with him in Parliament. He hustled. His father may have been president, but for him to reach where he is, he hustled and reached where he is. But what is the distinction between their narrative and just calling anybody a hustler is when they brought in the issue of dynasty. and where they were creating a clear distinction between people who have struggled and made it as against those who are still struggling to make it. And I like the example that Honorable Rigathi has said, and I'm so proud of that woman when I saw it. Actually, if you go to my Facebook, on that point, I congratulated her, because she hustled and reached where she is. But if it was the narrative according to Honorable Rigathi, she then becomes dynasty because she's successful. That is actually the problem that we are facing, that you cannot take Kenyans to make some dynasty and some hustlers. Everybody is a hustler, unless it's a kid who is sleeping and being fed. And that is what is very dangerous about this narrative. And that is why I was saying that even on the issue of the ethnic issue, that when you talk about exclusion of the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin, that's a dangerous, narrative. But if you talk about inclusion, that's totally different. And that's why, for me, these are two conversations that we must be very, very careful as a country, the way we go about it, because, as much as I also want to tell Honorable Rigathi that the same way you say that the issue of dynasty is very popular, the issue of talking about ethnicity is also very popular around other parts of the country. So the popularity of something doesn't necessarily make it a good thing. And as leaders, we need to be pretty sober about the way we handle those issues. I'm really sorry, what was the question again?
About another handshake, because as it looks, Uhuru Kenyatta may be looking to unite the country, and with the handshake in 2018 quelled the political temperatures at the time. We had a good couple of years, is it? And then now it's a whole other battleground in his own party, all-out war with his deputy. It's just war of words we see in public functions from both sides. So do they need a handshake, was the question.
Well, really, I wouldn't want to wade into, the Jubilee issues, but I personally wouldn't think it's a bad idea if they had a handshake for the sake of the country. And the reason I'm saying that is, since we got elected, I think many of us have not realized this, but since we got elected, we took the first year, there was a bit of a challenge. There was a bit of a challenge in terms of when we had to go back into re-election, when we had to go back into, I think you know the problems that we had the first time, especially the presidential elections. So we only then got to try and settle in the second year when we had the handshake, and then Corona came. So ideally, this government and even Parliament has really worked for about a year.
All right.
And the rest of it has been, then politicking. And for me, if they would want to have a handshake for the sake of the country, that is okay. It doesn't mean that then they walk the same political path, no. But it should be something that, it would be about recognizing that this country is greater than us and than all of us. And given the challenges the country is facing, both economic and social and health-wise, that then we need to really take a different stance about the way we are doing our politics.
Right. Honorable Rigathi, as I come to you, and we've seen the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga attempt to put the Deputy President to task on his narrative and question the quote-unquote, perhaps metamorphosis of William Ruto, Deputy President, in that he's the second in command, as I was saying earlier, has been in power since 2013 alongside President Uhuru Kenyatta. What they ran on then in 2013 and even in 2017 was far from wheelbarrows. And now we're hearing this is the thing that mkokoteni and wheelbarrows is the thing that will mean a change and a difference. And it is for some people. But that's not the William Ruto we saw in 2013. That was not what he was talking about. He talked about a 21st century train system, SGR. We didn't quite get that SGR, but hey, here we are. He talked about the stadiums, which he's asked, where are those? He talked about laptops alongside President Uhuru Kenyatta, of course. So what has changed? Isn't it extremely dishonest then of him as Deputy President to turn back to the same people and say, hey, I forget all those things I said, now let's talk wheelbarrows because I'm seeking to be president?
I think, Sophia, I don't know whether you are a student of literature. I'm one. The distinction one in Form 4,
yes.
Back in 1981. There is what we call metaphor. The wheelbarrow is a metaphor. don't look at the wheelbarrow per se, in the literary sense. The wheelbarrow is a tool of trade. And the wheelbarrow narrative is that working hard, using any tool, you can become somebody someday. It doesn't matter what your hustle is, yeah? Mm-hmm. It may be mama mboga, it may be boda boda, it may be a hawker, it may be a shopkeeper, it may be a makanga. Correct. A hustle is a hustle. Mm-hmm. So the wheelbarrow is a collective metaphor, is figurative, is figure of speech, you know? It is a symbol of the tool of trade, that any tool of trade is important. And every hustle needs to be respected. Because you have heard some people saying that the hustler thing is takataka. It isn't. Every hustle matters. It doesn't matter how small it is. You have asked how come the deputy president is not taking responsibility. He cannot take responsibility. The deputy president will take responsibility for what happened in this government in the first term, when him and President Uhuru Kenyatta were working hand by hand.
Where are the laptops then?
Yeah, they were working together.
Where are the laptops?
Yeah, they are not there. That for the things for the
Where
first
are the
term.
Stadiums?
For the first term,
yes,
they'll take responsibility.
He hasn't.
Why the stadiums are not there, Sophia, is that when we defeated Odhiambo in 2017, they went to the Supreme Court and petitioned the election of our president, and it was nullified. A second election was called that spent 12 billion. That is money that would have gone to do the stadiums. And these people, even after making us pay 12 billion, absconded going to the election. That is money that would have gone to stadiums. Number two, we had an agenda, the Big Four agenda: food security, universal health care for all, manufacturing, yeah, and housing. The housing program of 500,000 units in 5 years per unit would have created at least 8 jobs to put up a house. We are talking about 4 million jobs for our young people. Then what happened? We get the handshake. Despite the fact that we had majority in Senate, we had majority in the National Assembly, and we were functioning and things were going on. Then it was now decided that the Big Four are no longer urgent. We have something very, very urgent called the BBI and the handshake. And you can tell me, Sophia,
with respect,
even our leaders today,
with respect,
nobody talks about the Big Four.
Allow me to interject.
Nobody talks about the Big Four.
In 2013, we covered that election.
Yes.
Honorable Ruto, there are many clips of him talking about a double-digit economy. Numerous times, how Kenya will be... This is 2013, even before 2012 during the campaigns.
Yes.
1 million jobs every year for the youth, and so many other promises, from what you've talked about, the laptops, all of those things.
Yes.
So the question is to the person watching and who read those manifestos and saw those promises, grand promises of a better life, and then today they are being told, and I hear you, and yes, a wheelbarrow does make a difference to some people, but what has changed with that Ruto in 2013 and the Deputy President today?
Sophia, we had a 20-year program for Jubilee, 10-10, yeah? It was not a 5-year program. What had been envisaged would not be done in 5 years. It was a 10-year program. And things started very well. The railway, the standard gauge railway was done. Over 7,000 kilometers of low-volume sail was done. NHIF, a lot of people were enrolled in the program. Electrification, over 7 million Kenyans were connected to electricity in the first term. All these other things were meant to happen in the second term. Then come in the handshake, come in the change of priorities, that it is no longer urgent to deal with the Big Four. What is important is to bring the country together, is to unite the country, is to build bridges, and we are building bridges by breaking the old ones, which in my view is a bit lopsided, because as you build new bridges, you need to sustain the old ones, and then we lost the priority, and then the country got polarized. We were told the handshake is to bring the country together. Sophia, today, you tell me, before the handshake, this country is more disunited than it was before the handshake. You can see the political temperatures in the country. You can see the divide. Yet the handshake was supposed to bring people together. But the fact that we decided to demolish the old bridges and build new ones, and you know the old ones were tested and they were working, we would have kept the old bridges that are tested and working as we build new ones. And you see, I am happy the way Honorable Millie is saying that a handshake with the Deputy President and the President is good. That is change of tune. After the first handshake on March 18th, you know, the Deputy President was rubbish. He was nothing. You know, it was argued that with the President's 8 million votes and the Prime Minister's 6 million votes, that is 14, you don't need William Ruto, you don't need anybody else.
Okay.
You know, and let me also say this.
Briefly, please.
Let me say this. Ruto was shafted out of government. His responsibilities of coordinating the cabinet subcommittees were taken away from him and given to Fred Matiang'i. His role of going to inspect development projects and make sure that things are going on were removed from him, and he was stopped. And that is why, because he's been a busy man, this is a man who has been active all his life, he could not just sit and read newspapers. He started working on the Hasra thing. You know, empowering Boda Boda, empowering wheelbarrow people, empowering Mukokoteni, because he is not just going to sit in the office. He has no role, he has no responsibility, no minister picks his call, no PS goes to his office, he cannot give any instruction to anybody. He had to chart a way of life.
All right, let's go to Honorable Murathe. I imagine you have something to say regarding what you've heard there.
I think it's not fair to try and absorb the DP from the failures and then at the same time give him credit for the successes of the Jubilee administration. It's true, a lot has been achieved. Actually, even all these roads that people talk about, Kibaki roads, are Uhuru roads. The framework was done by Kibaki, but the person who has done them is Uhuru. Power, 70-75% penetration, is the Jubilee government. The housing is still going on, albeit not at the pace that was envisaged. My fear, Sophia, is how you have seen this uprising of these young men, these Boda Boda fellows. One of them gets involved in an accident, like there was one here on Outer Ring Road the other day. And then they all come and they start saying they want blood of the motorist. And in most cases than not, it is the Boda Bodas who are at fault. Number two, we know what happened, and Rigathi here knows how this thing degenerates from a shopkeeper. They start taking tolls from them. It goes to a matatu owner. It goes, and they start terrorizing. We had something called Mungiki in Mount Kenya, and they went down to your eggs and to your milk. This is the radicalization that I'm talking about, because they might intend it to mean something else, this wheelbarrow narrative, but the way it is being translated and operationalized and implemented on the ground, it is a recipe for chaos. The reason we had a handshake with Ruto was a peace dividend, so that you never have the people of the Rift Valley who are side by side ever having to fight again. When you now had the handshake with Raila Amolo Odinga, we wanted to expand that understanding across more than just one community. And I believe the president's legacy is about living a united country. Gachagua is saying because the DP was denied certain responsibilities, he started to tanga-tanga. That is why he has all this time to go over the place. He goes all over the place, taking credit for government projects. His government, his part and parcel. You know, you can never separate the presidency in our circumstances. You can never fire the deputy president. It is a team, it is a pair. And that is why sometimes you were even thinking they should both just serve one term and go home. This narrative of 10, 20 years, I don't know where they got it from. Maybe it was a campaign gimmick or slogan, but there must be an understanding. I doubt whether Gachagua really understands what BBI is all about. BBI is a 9-point program, which is supposed to bring peace and stability in this country. And without peace and stability in this country, there will be no development, there will be no economic growth, there will be no jobs for those people that you're talking about, And I actually would like to ask them what it is about BBI, for example, that they are opposing. Because if they have read it, and a lot of people have read it, the devolution he's talking about is being expanded on the basis of equalization, on the principle of one man, one vote,
okay.
one man, one shilling. I don't know what it is. They go around insulting the president. Where else have you ever had people going around insulting their own president? Nobody insults Raila in Nyanza. Nobody insults Kalonzo in Ukambani. Nobody insults Musalia in Western. How is it that it's only in Mount Kenya and the Tanga wheelbarrow people who go around insulting the president as if he has no feelings? I actually take great exception in terms of how they are approaching. They have no respect, including, okay, you don't respect the man. Respect the institution of the president. Respect the presidency. Because tomorrow you may be the president. And I'm sure you don't want to go down that route.
All right. Let's talk about the BBI, which you've brought up. And Honorable Millie, as I bring it to you, there are those who would argue, except, say, for Sagana 3, which happened the past weekend, and we saw the president trying to rally support from his backyard and some of the interviews he's been doing recently, that Raila Odinga has largely been carrying this, you know, from the front, in engaging various stakeholders and all of that, the heavy lifting, the hard groundwork. Do you see this as something that has been left to the ODM leader, former prime minister? Because the BBI secretariat as well, the question have been, what have they been doing? What do they do? We saw them handing over signatures, but in terms of BBI and all of it and the hard front and center has largely been Raila Odinga. Does that concern you?
Well, that doesn't concern me for two reasons. But before, let me get back to you before I get into the issue of BBI, that I want to thank Honorable Rigathi that in some respects we are very similar, that he was an excellent student of literature and he got a distinction 1, which I also got a distinction 1 in literature. And one of the things that you learn in literature is that whatever symbolism that you pick shows your psyche. If you pick a wheelbarrow, it shows your psyche. And you could easily have picked a laptop, which also is a symbol of Jubilee, to show that what you can be aspiring for. So really the agenda that they are selling about the wheelbarrow does not make sense. You could say that you could aspire to get laptops, and you would get laptops. And so my fellow student, of literature, yeah, we know about symbolism and we know what you are intending. With the wheelbarrow, it was supposed to be exclusive and to show some people as dynasties, and it is not right. Everybody has struggled in this country. But having said that, I want to say why I'm not worried about BBI. And also to just say that it's unfortunate that even when we appreciate the need of peace, we are not saying something that is new about building, handshakes. That's why I'm not opposed to a handshake between William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta if they want to, because it shouldn't have been broken in the first place. But the Tanga team were behaving like jilted lovers, that when the president is trying to seek cohesion and peace in the country, then they've gone and sulked at a corner like a guy who thinks, a lady whose husband is about to take on a lover or a mistress who sulks. And that is not actually what was intended by the BBI. The BBI is about inclusion, it's about bringing Kenyan together and about playing our politics different. What happens is that that there are politicians in this country that are very active. Like I have heard Rigathi saying that William Ruto is very active, and if he feels that his work is being done by somebody else, then he goes tangering. One of the most active politicians in this country is Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. He does not change his persona because we are dealing with the BBI. He cannot wait for people who move at snail pace in the past, as we have known, to move at their pace. Let each of us move at our own, paces. But other than that, I think we also don't understand the legal processes that have been entailed in BBI. Like, for instance, when you are doing signature verification, what are you supposed to do at that time? You wait for the signature verification. and then you can move on with it. So I think we must also be appreciative of the legal processes that have been entailed in BBI. That's why even on our side, you can even see before then, we're not doing a lot of campaign around BBI, but Tanga went ahead selling a lot of propaganda around it, even before we could clarify to people what BBI really is all about. And so for me, really, I don't have a problem if Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga appears to be taking the lead on BBI, because it actually is just being true to form. He's always been a hard worker. He's always been a person who has the interests of the country at heart. He's always been a person who has always, worked together to bring the country together, even after very contentious elections, and he's been willing to let go many, many times. So it's just being Raila Amolo Odinga. That's who he's always been.
Yeah. Honorable Gachagua and the Deputy President and yourself and others allied to him have expressed misgivings on this BBI in the past. The question has been, with the reggae singing and playing on, now County Assembly Siaya has already endorsed it, and we'll wait to see what happens in coming days. Does your wing intend to take a definitive position regarding this BBI going forward? We've seen the likes of Martha Karua under the banner of Linda Katiba say categorically no, this, and give their reasons, make a case for why. We've had your misgivings, but is this watermeloning on the issue of BBI from your side?
First, before I answer to that, I would like to urge my friend David Murathe, my good friend for many years. We are family friends, by the way. Our children are tight, our wives are tight, and we are good friends, and we have undergone many things together. We have struggled, we have hustled, and I'm happy he's saying he's a hustler. And that is why, even Raila is saying he's a hustler, that's why we want these hustlers to allow the other small hustlers to also hustle, and not condemn them as takataka. Telling the president the truth is not abusing him. I would like anybody to play a tape where I've abused President Uhuru Kenyatta. Myself, I've worked for President Kenyatta for 18 years. My youth life, I've spent it working for Uhuru Kenyatta. I've voted for him 4 times. I've campaigned for him. I have tremendous respect for President Uhuru Kenyatta. But I have a responsibility to the people of Madeira to speak the truth. And I don't think speaking the truth is tantamount to abuse. What we have done is that we have told the president that our people, the ones we represent, do not think the BBI is a priority. And that's the way they feel, Sophia. I'm a people's representative. I speak for the people. And, probably David here is not being taken to task by somebody because he has not been elected by somebody. Myself, the people of Madeira ask me, So I'm saying for now. You were elected before me, then you spoke, and you spoke very well. And you remember when you spoke the truth, Moi locked you up. These things Murathe, that speaking the truth can be sometimes unsettling, So when I speak, I say milk prices are bad. I'm not abusing the president. When I say coffee prices are bad, I'm not abusing him. When I say that our people were evicted from Kariobangi during COVID in a very inhuman manner, that is not an abuse. When I say that the bulk of our businessmen in the Mount Kenya region are being auctioned because of pending bills, I'm not being abusive. I'm just being truthful. Sophia, we have something in Mount Kenya region that has been developed called praise and worship. These are people, when they see the president, they just tell him everything is okay. Your Excellency, we are happy. The people are happy. They love you. They are just waiting for you. Whatever you tell us to do is what we shall do. I'm not that way myself. Why I stayed with President Uhuru Kenyatta for many years, and he liked me a lot, is because whenever he sought my opinion, I told him the truth. David Murathe knows. I have not changed, and I have not changed. I'm a truthful man. We don't abuse the president. We speak the truth.
Right,
sometimes the truth is bitter. Sometimes it is bitter to people who surround him, who don't want him to hear the truth. But in the fullness of time, we'll be respected ourselves because we'll have been seen to be truthful people who speak the way it is.
I think it's also important that he tells us what BBI exactly happened. Are you telling us there's something changed so that you're not able to speak truth to power or to your friend, the president? The other day you were here telling us how we should not assassinate you. Gachagua, please, as we are not of that mentality of when you people were special deals of Oyugi, when you see Sonko in Kamete today, we actually feel he's under protection. Because these guys can even decide to go and assassinate him and then blame it on the president. We are genuinely
I'm happy my message got
thinking
home.
that, you know, in terms of assassination, people have made several allegations. Jirongo, he made allegations about the murder of Jacob Juma. Up to today, nobody has ever even taken him to court. Nobody has ever challenged him to substantiate. So, that culture of telling people, don't assassinate us, don't kill us. Where is it coming from?
No, you know,
you
I must tell you
are
why.
a friend of the president. You are saying you speak truth to him. What happened? Why are you not doing that now? What changed?
What changed, David Murathe, is that you yourself, you came on TV and said the second term of the president will be dictatorial. It has come to pass, okay? And Kenya has degenerated into a police state. Yesterday, there is a guy, a Jubilee youth leader in Kiaba, he's called Jokona. He wants to run for parliament against Paul Koinange. At 5 p.m., he was abducted by police officers near Roosters. And he was put a hood. He was taken around the city for 3 hours. He was beaten up. A gun was put in his mouth. He was driven all the way. Let me say.
We cannot.
No, I'm just saying it's factual because there is an OB. There is a report in the OB.
And his Tanga.
He was driven all the way to Burnt Forest. He was stripped of all his clothes and tied to a tree and left there. And he was told he has invited the deputy president on Friday for some youth empowerment program for border borders in Banana Hill. He was told to stop it and not dare run against Koinange. Then he was able to untie himself. He was able to hike a lift all the way to Eldoret. He went to Eldoret police station. He made a report. There is an OB entry, and we hope it will be investigated. It is such things, my friend David Murathe, that are causing a lot of fear, and these fears are not unfounded. Because we have seen, Sonko, you say he's under protection. By the way, I disagree with Sonko. He has no business abusing President Uhuru Kenyatta. President Uhuru Kenyatta is the president of the Republic of Kenya. He is anointed by God to be the president of this country. Even if you disagree with him, you need to accord him respect. But I want to say, when I hear that he has been charged with buying military fatigues to wear, I saw our Jubilee women after the repeat election wearing the same fatigues and nobody has charged them. So let us not have double standards. Let us have uniform application of the law. You know, let us not have only those who are associated with the deputy president who are on the wrong side of the law. You know, that is all we're asking. And David Murathe, we are apprehensive, and that is why I said it on TV. I continue saying, let us not go back to the 1970s, the 1980s, when we had intolerance and we had political assassination, J.M. Kariuki, Kongo Karoba, Robert Ouko. Those things are in history, and they have happened in this country. And the kind of intolerance we are seeing is worrisome. And that is why we must keep on saying, please, even if you want to do anything else to make people toe the line, as it were, don't go to the issue of assassination. You deal with all these other things.
Again,
about BBI, Sophia.
And
about BBI.
But I wanted
there
to
are
make
many
a
good
point.
things in BBI.
I wanted to make a point regarding what you were talking about, the OB.
Yes.
Making a complaint does not necessarily make it. I just want to make that these are allegations that are being made.
Yes,
to just clarify.
It happened.
All right.
And we hope it will be investigated.
They are very good with propaganda.
We hope
very good with propaganda.
We hope it will be investigated.
Correct. So let's
the BBI, there are several.
A definitive position. You've been on for a while, so perhaps in under a minute, if you may, on that BBI question.
And you know, today you have put me against two people. You must give me more time. You have brought two handshakers against one, so you must give me more time because they're having the same argument.
Go ahead,
I mean, let's be fair to each other.
I have given you a minute to speak.
You have two
to
handshakers.
my question.
Now, BBI. Let me tell Millie, in our region, why there is a problem to start with. Our people hate bravado. They hate chest thumping. This thing of nobody can stop reggae, our people cannot stand it. They will stop it, just to make a point to start with.
So why not then mount a no campaign?
Number two, nobody has read this book, okay? Nobody has read this book. We are just being told past BBI, it has not been brought for people to digest. When they ask, they are told you can go online. Many people don't have smartphones. And that is why, Millie, we cannot pick the laptop as our symbol, yeah? Because it will alienate very many people. But the wheelbarrow, even the people of laptops, they know the wheelbarrow.
So do you support BBI or not? That perhaps is
no,
the question.
I am saying we are not going to oppose BBI for the simple reason. We want to avoid us versus them contest. It's unnecessary. This country cannot afford it.
And yet to have a dynasty versus hustlers. Isn't that
we have
dynasty versus hustlers is us, the dynasties versus us,
no, the dynasties are how many? They are not even 10.
But they still us versus them.
No, they are not even. The dynasties.
He's talking as if the dynasties are dinosaurs.
We are saying this country, it is not the poor versus the rich, the way it's being corrupted. Yeah? Dynasties are people who are privileged. Yeah? And by that, because of that privilege, they access power and they access wealth. We are saying hustlers is anybody who is not privileged and working hard, getting power and getting wealth. That's what we are saying.
I think it is not fair, Sophia, for someone to stand here saying how they are not going to oppose it, and at the same time saying how they are going to make it fail because they're going to stop
reggae. I'll come to you shortly in just a minute. David Murathe, just complete your statement. I wanted to hear what Honorable Millie was saying. Yes.
It is dishonest because, like, we had a meeting in Sagana.
Which I was going to ask, how do you rate that? How did it go?
In that meeting, the delegates who came there went home with copies. It is the responsibility of these leaders to have read the BBI, to go and advise and inform and tell the people. We have the congregations in the churches. They do rallies all over the place. I don't see why it is so difficult for them to be able to go and explain to their constituents the pros and the cons in the BBI. All we hear, and they are very good with the propaganda, Sophia. They have a unit which churns out a lot of lies and a lot of propaganda, but we are busy continuing with the programs, and the president is focused on rolling out his legacy projects, regardless of the disruptions and the distractions along the way.
Honorable Millie Odhiambo, you had something to say. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I wanted to just say that Honorable Rigathi should also be honest. As a member of parliament, you're actually dynasty. You drive a very good car, which is given as a grant. You live in a very nice house that you buy through a mortgage in parliament. When you come and put mkokoteni on top of your very, very expensive 10 million car, you cannot be a hustler. You are actually a dynasty. So don't let us not go into saying that how people are, 10 dynasties. You are one of the dynasties in this country, if there's any such thing, as a dynasty or whatever. But I also just wanted to comment on something that I find very curious about this Tanga Tanga team, that when Osoro spoke, and many people are not speaking to what Osoro spoke, when he was actually allowed to speak in Kisii. When he spoke, he said to the Kisii and his Tanga Tanga that the reason that they should not support BBI is because it gives many constituencies to the Kikuyu. He said that very clearly. But when you come this side, the story changes. I think the country is wise and we listen and we watch. If, as Millie Odhiambo, I support the Kikuyu, support getting more constituencies, I will explain to you why. I was in the Constitutional Select Committee in Bomas, and for purposes of moving the country forward, we agreed not to give the number of constituencies that was due to Central Kenya at that time. And that is why they are getting more constituencies than any other part of the country at this point. But you cannot then say as Tanga Tanga on the one hand that because their constituencies coming to Central Kenya, then we oppose it, and then you sneak back to Central Kenya and tell them to give you, votes. Let us be consistent. And I would also want to say, and really just want to thank Honorable Rigathi for putting God or the primacy of God on the leadership of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and he said that he was chosen by God. That means he's a God-fearing member of parliament who reads his Bible. And if you read your Bible, then you should know that as a member from the same side as President Uhuru Kenyatta, it is actually unbiblical and ungodly to call out your own leader in public. If you have an issue with him, you must find ways of redressing without undressing him in public. And on the one side saying, I'm not abusing him, but using your metaphorical language, you end up actually abusing Uhuru. I know many of you like challenging me and telling me, but you have abused Uhuru. Yes, I did. He was not my president at that point. We were not on a handshake, and I did not acknowledge his presidency at that point, and that is why I did. But for you who actually went, voted for him, went and campaigned for him, and convinced the country to vote for him a second time, then you come and criticize him more than me who used to abuse him, and then you want to convince the rest of the country that because of the people of Madeira have told you. Yes, the same way the people of Kenya that voted for him sent you so that you can find order in the manner that you talk to the president and address your party leader. I cannot speak to Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that way. The Bible is replete with the stories about two sons that, for example, one of two sons that saw their father naked. And one of them went and started shouting, come and see our father naked. And one took a blanket and covered the nakedness, and that doesn't mean you are not telling your father that he's naked. Because when he wakes up, he will know that he's naked because he slept naked, but somebody covered him. So it's actually the way you deal with issues. You cannot be dealing with the president the way you are dealing and then come out, looking all nice and dressed in suits and ties that are pulled in Kisii and telling us how, the people of Madeira sent me to talk this way and that way to the president. As a person who elected the president, you owe it to him to respect him. Otherwise, why should the country take you seriously to choose the deputy president as president? Then 1 year later, you will come and start telling us how Madeira people have told you to disrespect him. We cannot take you seriously. At least we are consistent in the things we do.
As you give your closing remarks, perhaps one question before I come to the gentleman. On BBI, finally, to you, we're hearing a lot of that with central Kenya. Doesn't the rest of the country, in your view, care about this? Isn't there any concerns, questions, or is it sold and settled from where you sit, that the rest of the country is good on this BBI?
Well, a lot of, I have said it before because I've told you I'm a very consistent person. I've said it before, that even me as a member of parliament for Suba North, people asked me, why is central Kenya getting more constituencies than other areas? And I explained to them why. And they asked me, why then should we support the BBI? And I explained to them why. That when you have 35%, and we are talking about an increase of 35% in terms of money going to, our counties, then the the employment that we are talking about is likely to go higher, and the economy is likely to be spurred up, and even development is likely to rise. And so that even when we are talking about hustle, more people will get job at counties and be able to deal with their hustle. There are many teething problems from the county and the devolved structures. And because you are having challenges right now, doesn't mean that they are permanent. And therefore, I've even had some of them saying that even at 15, we are not able to realize the 15 now. But the 15 is constitutional. Okay. What after we sort out the problems and then it is 15 permanently?
All right.
Let us move it to 35%. And perhaps the history I want to tell Kenyans is that when we move this at the Parliamentary Select Committee, as ODM, originally our figure was 40%. The person who pushed for a lower number was Honorable William Samoei Ruto, and you can actually see it in the Hansard. I am the one who pushed for an amendment that brought it to 15%. So his history has not been very favorable of devolution.
All right. Honorable Rigathi, to you, perhaps also in responding to some of what Honorable Millie has talked about, that in speaking truth to power, and that you supported this president at some point, that then you should be hiding the nakedness of the king as opposed to exposing it, and that it's Mount Kenya that's largely benefiting. What do you reconcile that to your supporters?
Well, we don't abuse the president, and I would like to tell Millie Odhiambo, us from the mountain, we are different from the people from the lake. We are not psychopaths. And speaking the truth is not disrespect, you know, because I hear them, if Baba tells them to commit suicide, they'll just commit suicide. As we are different. And, you know, we have a history, even the British colonialists, we say no. I mean, we are people who have a brain, people who speak for what is right. We want to cover the king. And my friend here, David, I would like to ask him to assist us to cover the king by allowing Jubilee to meet and allow people to speak. You know, Jubilee Party, since 2017, we have never held a meeting. And the few meetings we have held are for expelling people, you know. The only organ in the party that is working is the disciplinary committee. The other organs of the party do not meet. It is those forums where you talk with the king and you cover his nakedness, you know, in closed doors so that people do not know. But if a party does not meet for 3 years, the economy has gone down, things are not working, there is no medicine, we are having wrong priorities, we have abandoned Big Four, we cannot simply just keep quiet. We have to look for a forum. This Sagana 3 that happened, we were not invited. We were about 45 people who were not invited. We are leaders in our own right. We may be small people, people may think we are rubbish and disregard us, but we have some little respect. At least our wife who respects me and 2 boys who think I'm a hero. I mean, for that, you need to listen to me. When you don't call 45 members of parliament and you go to a meeting, you say you are trying to put things in order, you are just wasting your time because the people we represent are not happy that we are not invited. I was elected by 58,000 people. I have heard the president sometimes say that he's the one who helped us, and we allow him that, he can say so, but we also put some effort in one way or another. There are people I look for to vote for me, and there are people who respect me. There is no way you can say you are dealing with a problem in the Mount Kenya region, lock out 45 leaders, and you think you have dealt with a problem. You haven't. Since that meeting in Sagana, yesterday we were somewhere in Gatundu, the deputy governor of Kiambu, who was in that meeting, never talked about the BBI because there's a lot of hostility. A man from my constituency who works closely with my friend here, who is in charge of the BBI in the entire region, was rejected by the people. He got 2,000 votes. He tried to talk about BBI somewhere. He could not be allowed to speak, you know, because people do not think it has been handled right. If the leaders had been called, and the president would have called us, talk to us, tell us what he thinks, allow us to tell him what we think, what people are saying, we have a conversation. In those 3 days, we would have had some unity and a common purpose.
But there were 7,000
leaders. Let me tell you, Sophie.
There were 7,000
let me tell you, the same people who were in Sagana 3 were the same people who were in Sagana 2. They are the same people who were in Sagana 1. They are the same people who were in Bomas 2. They are the same people who are in Bomas 1. They are just talking to the same people they have been talking to. Okay. These are the same people who attend Madaraka Day celebrations. They are called by the chiefs. They are the same people who attend Mashujaa Day. Right. They are the same people. You are talking to the same group. Right. It would have made a lot of sense to talk to the group that is saying, we don't understand this BBI, we have a little bit of a problem, and then you can explain to them. But if you talk to the same group, the praise and worship choir, they will just continue singing the same song and sing to nobody. All so right. There may be need, I agree with Millie, there may be need for us to sit with the king and at an appropriate time. And nobody abuses him. We just speak our mind. If he gets time and he thinks it is necessary to seek our views and to hear what problem we have and what our people are saying, we are more than available. He will call us, we will come running.
And the vice chair is here. Perhaps in closing, he can then, as you give your closing remarks, why not consider that kind of a setup where you have those who may not read from the same script as you in a session and talk, conversate?
Sophia, BBI will pass. BBI will pass in Mount Kenya overwhelmingly, with or without their support. The other day, my friend Rigathi here was saying that we were bribing MCAs because there was a resolution of all the 10 counties of Mount Kenya. They made a resolution to pass. And I'm going to congratulate Siaya for being the first to pass it at the assembly. Their leader is on record saying, jamaa mwingine anadanganya watu about loans. We have it's there in the BBI, the 7-year tax haven for young people coming out of universities. It is the fact. It is captured. And then he's talking about his boss, by the way, when he says jamaa mwingine anadanganya watu. This Rigathi is talking about the cars for the MCAs, 2 million shillings. They have been clamoring for this thing forever. They already get it themselves. They get housing. They get all these allowances which they are denying that leadership which is at the grassroots. If you look at the devolved 35%, anchored in the Constitution, means that when the economy can afford that, you are actually sharing the national cake, the 100% collectible. You are sharing it not less than 35 to the units. Today, it's not less than 15. And to be fair, they actually get more than 15% today as we talk. And I was with the Ukuri attorney the other day. About those meetings which my friend is talking about, they have forums called PG meetings. They can organize themselves to have party parliamentary group meetings. The last time I checked, when the president called for a PG meeting, there was a move to whipped by the deputy president for people not to attend in the Senate. And for that reason, we called a party disciplinary committee and came up with the decision to remove some of those people who were the whipping people from attending the president's PG meeting for the Senate. That is how we got rid of people like Kindiki, Duale, Murkomen, Susan, and the rest. On this Sagana one, you had to have people who believe in the BBI. We were not about to bring in people who have already gone on record fighting the BBI and then wanting to come and poison people at a forum where we were actually on a recruitment mission for people to go out with the good news. Even Jesus had disciples and he told them, go out and preach the good news according to what you've seen and heard. And I can tell you, by the time people left that place, Sophia, there was the business community, there was the political leadership, there was the MCAs, there were youth, there were women, there were governors, there were even elders of the community. And by the time people left that thing, and I can tell my friend Rigathi here, if they really feel that they want to oppose the BBI, maybe it's a high time they pronounce themselves and decided to go and support the no cause, because according to him, the people of Mount Kenya don't like being talked down to. Nobody's talking down to anybody. People are looking at the pros and the cons. They're looking at the benefits and the advantages, and that's the reason it will pass overwhelmingly in Mount Kenya.
Well, why didn't you,
more than any other person?
Briefly, why didn't you accompany Honorable Raila when he was in Githurai?
Because we were not aware. I am actually from Roysambu. The Member of Parliament, Waihenya, was mobilized at very short notice about the impending visit. There was even a time they had announced it and then they had postponed it. But
is the
I'm
president
told,
going to take him there in central Kenya anytime soon?
oh, Raila is free to travel anywhere.
Together with the president, will they together
Let
go
me
to
tell you
popularize
the
BBI
difference between Raila and Tangatanga. You have to have respect. And the president said, you don't come to my house through the back door or through the window and start whispering to my wife. He has the dignity to want to go down there with the president. These guys want to go and sneak behind the president and now address the Mount Kenya people. I believe in his role.
Yes, as I'll give you a rebuttal.
I believe in his role as head of the AU on infrastructure. He should be in a position to go with the president to inspect the work that has been done in terms of the infrastructure development in Mount Kenya, like any other place. They go together. You have not in Kisumu. My question. I have said it, Sophia. You
have not answered my
question. They have been with the president to inspect the port in Kisumu. Not once, not twice.
I'm talking about
I'm telling you, they inspect infrastructure projects with the president. They've been to the stadium, they've been to the lake.
I agree.
They are going to go to Mount Kenya to inspect the infrastructure.
And on BBI, when will they go to popularize BBI in Mount Kenya? That's the question I'm asking. Yes,
I
they have
think
done
you're
those things
jumping the gun. My friend, this is a process which started with collection of signatures. It has now gone to the county assemblies.
Correct.
All right? We are now mobilizing those counties to pass it. That is notary for public rallies, okay? From there, it will come to parliament. We will be mobilizing these guys to pass it. Those are not public rallies.
Yes,
Then
the
it will
rallies
go,
have been
if
ongoing.
the referendum comes, then we go public.
Got you.
And you will be able to see the president and the former prime minister
Thank you.
aggressively campaigning for this document together.
Got you.
All over the country, not just Mount Kenya.
Sophia.
Got you. One minute, sir, please. We must wind up.
Yeah, Sophia,
Extremely out of
it's
time.
been 3 years.
Yes.
Raila has not been brought to the mountain. In Sagana, there was a lot of laboring, explaining that the BBI has nothing to do with Raila. Because the people
You
of
are
that
not
region,
there. How can you
because the
talk
people of
about
that
something?
region-
You are not there.
Because the people of that region have a problem. These people will not bring Raila, the elected members, because it's suicidal. They switched their phones. Even there was no MCA, they should change this guy. And I told him in Kisii, you be very careful. These guys will abandon you in high noon. The president said something very important in Sagana. And by the way, David Murathe, we were not there. Phones were on, we were listening. We have supporters too, and we have people everywhere. Let me also tell you, we are leaders, we are elected, we have people. And the president said something very important, and I agree with him 100%, that anybody who wants to come to the mountain should come through the front door,
Okay.
not through the window. But the front door, according to us, in matters politics, in matters being elected, it is coming through the people directly.
All right.
And that is what we shall do. Finally,
Our time
as we respect the president,
Yes.
David Murathe has said the presidency is one. Let him respect the presidency. Let him lead in respecting the deputy president with his other people who abuse the deputy president.
Okay.
Let's respect the presidency the way he has said. He has said they are one and the same, but
All right.
he leads in abusing the deputy president.
Rigathi
Let us
Gachagua.
respect the two of them.
Madera, Member of Parliament, many thanks. David Murathe, Vice Chair, Jubilee, and Millie Odhiambo, Super North Member of Parliament. Thank you all for making time for Crossfire, and you for watching. Always a pleasure. Keep the conversation going online, seeing your feedback, and thanking you so much for tuning in on behalf of the team that made the show possible. Delighted to have your company. I'm Sophia Wanuna. God bless you.